Hello and welcome to the Redvee TV Show, supported by Chapel House for the 2023 season, ahead of St Helens' trip over the Pennines to the Halifax Panthers in the sixth round of the Challenge Cup. Joined tonight by Peter. Peter, how are you?
Yes, very well. Thank you very well indeed. Looking forward to another exciting sporting weekend. Plenty of cup activity to keep us all on the edge of our seats or leaning against the crush barrier, whatever, however you're taking up the game at the weekend.
Yes, exactly. It's promises to be a good one. Before we get into it, do you think that clubs should be in the Challenge Cup a little bit earlier?
Yeah, because I mean, last year ourselves and Dave did the instant fan reaction in the glorious sunshine at the end of March. Up for you, but down for me in Whitehaven.
Yeah.
In the round previously, and here we are, kind of mid to end of May, and we're just entering the competition. I think it's not so good for smaller clubs, maybe your lower kind of like championship or championship two, or even amateur teams. They could come out of the hat with a Saints, a Wigan, a Leeds, a Warrington, or someone of that nature that would fill their ground and kind of give them a budget for the next 3 or 4 years or more as a club and as a supporter. And I'm sure this resonates with a lot of Saints fans. We go to the same grounds every year, although admittedly it's been decades since Saints were last over at the Shea, if it's still called that. I don't even know.
It is,
but
yeah.
Used to be Thrum Hall, I think, before with Halifax, wasn't it? Is that right? Sure. Yeah. Getting to a new ground, even at like going to Whitehaven, it had been 20 odd years since we were at Whitehaven. There's probably dozens of grounds that Saints fans haven't been to in years, or even teams that haven't come to Saints. That's the magic of the cup, getting a draw, a good day out on the lash, probably for quite a few people as well. Present company accepted, obviously.
Well, yeah, you'd never find me drinking at a rugby league game, Peter. Obviously.
Well, of course not. I would only see you doing the fan reaction afterwards. But let's not go back there again.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the thing. It's about a day out. It's like, I mean, I think there's about 3 or 4 all Super League ties, and while it's good for neutrals watching those games in telly, think, oh, these, potentially a good game. But if you're a fan of one of those teams, it's like we play Catalan or Hull KR, for example, 3, 4 times a season. You don't want them again in the cup until we get to the maybe quarters or semi. But so, yeah, I think through the Super League clubs in earlier, even if we're playing, half your first team and then you're playing your kind of fringe players and sprinkled with a few academy boys, so it gives them more opportunity to play as well. So, yeah, it feels like it's almost like a 2-tier competition.
Yeah, that's it. You say it's decades since we've been over to Halifax. I think the last time we played over there was 2003 when they were last in Super League. Last time we obviously played them was in the Challenge Cup in 2019 when we beat them in one for the purists, the 26 points to 2 victory. Which I wasn't at. I was watching that. I was in Liverpool. I can't remember why. And when you just sat there thinking, I think I'm better off where I am. As you say, it puts money into the lower league clubs if you get this opportunity. And I know people say that if you get a lower league club, it should automatically be switched, so it's at their ground. It might not necessarily want that, so that's something for future chats, I'd say. But Saints have put out that there's 1,100 or over 1,100 fans travelling across to the Shea on Friday night. Halifax have put out that they've sold over 2,500 tickets. So it's hopeful that no matter what team Saints put out there, and we're going to get onto the squads in a minute, it's a strong squad. But no matter what combination of that 21 takes to the field, hopefully this isn't a potential banana skin.
Well, hopefully not. And I think looking at the squad, Saints are viewing it as this is a serious game. I know we're talking about Whitehaven last year. We still put out a very strong team. but there were, two or three fringe players, if you like. And talking of crowds, I mean, I think there was roughly, the thick end of 5,000 at Whitehaven last year. And I think if perhaps for Halifax's sake, if the game had been Saturday rather than Friday, that might have put an extra 1,000 or so on the gate. But it's still probably a bigger crowd than they normally get. There's still opportunities for people to buy tickets now that the teams are out. People will maybe holding off to see if Saints would play their full team, or you'd have 5 or 6 academy lads in the pool. Glad to see we've gone strong and we'll get on to what we think the team's going to be. But I was myself and a few of the Saltire Saints.
Very nice.
Well, yeah, we were down at Bolton with myself, Graham, Wilf, and Nick. We're down for that semi-final, and it was a bit of a drag. It was a bit of a to use a good Scottish word, a bit of a dreich day. I don't need to mention what that means. You understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
the weather was like. It was dreich. But it was a semi-final. We'd been done the previous year. I was just sitting close to you when we get hammered off Catalan. So going to a semi-final and winning is what it's all about. So and it was a cracking day out. So no complaints. If it's a similar score on Friday night, I think we'll all be content.
Yeah, I think the crowd may take a little bit of a hit with the fact that FC Halifax Town are at Wembley on Sunday against Gateshead in the FA Trophy final. So I think that's why it's been put on the Friday rather than at the weekend. And I think that's very wise as well. You don't want to be trying to get fans to choose one or the other, because people who have already chosen Wembley above this because it's been in for a lot longer.
And indeed, with the FA Cup final as well, and on the Saturday of Magic, I know that doesn't affect Saints, but there may be, with some of the teams playing there, some of them might follow, United or City, and their chosen Super League team. And if they are as passionate about both, then they may well have a decision to make, But that's listen. I'm in that position myself because of all the teams I've got. In fact, Friday night, and I don't try not to mention Union too much in this, but my Union team, Glasgow Warriors, are playing in the European Rugby Challenge Cup final, which is like the Europa League final for rugby, if you like, against Toulon, one of the strongest French teams. So that I'll need to have the iPad and the telly on Friday night to watch both matches. And hope that Sharon doesn't mind that I'm commandeering the whole living room for 2 sporting occasions. But that's the gamble, It's a good job Motherwell aren't playing until Saturday. Otherwise, I'd have no chance at all. But it's not ideal. But sometimes you are going to get crossovers like that where you have to make a choice as to what team you're able to watch. But such is life.
Yeah, it is. It's the cross you have to bear. I like the idea of you having lots of screens going with all the sport going on. Right, squad news. 3 changes for Saints in that squad there, with Iggy Parsi, Sione Matautia and Morgan Knowles all coming back in. For the rested James Roby, he will stay on 532 for another week. Curtis Sirenen, who's picked up a 1-game ban, and Matty Lees, who argued successfully against the removal of a penalty notice and got a 2-game ban. And I've had a little look into this, and this is because the disciplinary panel who gave him the grade D were arguing that it shouldn't be sentenced against the existing kind of grading, so 2 to 3 games. They were arguing that it shouldn't be. Saints have successfully argued that. I hope I haven't mangled my words too much. Saints have successfully argued that. So Matty only misses 2 games. It could have been a lot worse. But I think it's just the due diligence of Saints when it comes to these disciplinary proceedings, that we go in and give our players the best possible chance of just having the case heard properly and properly judged. I'm not saying get players off, because I think at the time when it happened, we were expecting Matty Lees to get a card for for the hit. But just making sure that this panel acts in the correct way.
Yeah, and I think consistency is all that you're looking for, and that applies to supporters of all teams. I know a lot of rugby league fans on Twitter always say, "Oh, this Saints getting away with it again," but I think if they're being honest and they take off the kind of biased glasses, they would want their team to do everything they could to support their player, if it was their player, up in front of the beaks. And that's all that Saints are doing. We're obviously give perhaps better legal advice as to how to formulate the appeal or formulate the approach to getting the lesser sentence or the ban revoked completely. I think we are correct to do that. I did notice with interest on Twitter, obviously, your discussion with Ian Smith, who I have to commend for always engaging with supporters. He's done it with myself and he's done it with yourselves and everyone. He always is open and honest and explains things very, very well. And saying that, there is an argument that it's right that when a player's injured, player is injured in a tackle that's worthy of a ban, the ban should be higher if it means the player is out injured for longer. Whilst seeing that point of view, the point I think you guys were arguing, and I kind of agree with, is that it was a high shot and the injury is to his ankle, and whether the two, go together, one led to the other, that's kind of difficult to argue. If he was off with a concussion, then you think, or a broken jaw, for example, they say, right, well, fair enough. The high tackle has caused that injury, but an ankle injury, I'm not sure. That's difficult ground for me. I've no problem with the ban or Cyril getting the ban. I've seen one or two Saints fans saying, "Oh, why is he getting a ban and other players aren't?" As a few people have pointed out, it's obviously because it's not his first time, and you get the higher end of the grading if you're deemed to have not learned your lesson and are still committing the same offences. So it's absolutely fine. Whether you can argue that other players perhaps not being charged for similar offences, that's where the match review panel and the disciplinary boards perhaps have to answer a few questions for me. But on what Saints have had this week, absolutely no issue whatsoever.
Yeah, that's a point that we made on Twitter as well. Was we shared the Brett Ferris tackle on Matty Lees, which caused Matty Lees to miss the rest of the season. And people missed the point that we were making there. The fact that not everything that creates injury should lead to a ban. Brett Ferris shouldn't be banned for that. But if you're arguing the fact that, well, when people, and you see people, it's easy stuff to say, oh, well, he's broken his ankle, he's done this, he's done that, he's out for 6 weeks, that player should be sat down for 6 weeks. I understand the point of view, but I don't agree with it. I really don't agree with it. And that's it. Listen, I've seen people turn around and say Paul Wellens needs to get a grip of these disciplinary issues. It's not on Paul Wellens, this. I think when you're late hitting, whether you agree with the Sirenen or not, when you are hitting late, you've got to learn that lesson. Paul Wellens cannot get on that field and push Sirenen into making that tackle earlier. And I'm not having a go at Kurt Sirenen for it. He can't turn around to Matty Lees just before he makes a reckless high shot and say, don't do that, the split second, or grab his arm. He can't do that. It's all natural instinct, natural reaction. Anyway.
And I think the way that we play, we very much, with the best will in the world, we do play defensively very much on the line.
Yeah, on the edge, yeah.
Very much, at that position where, it's either going to be a perfectly timed tackle or a split second later, it's a late hit and you've got a ban. And it's certainly not a coaching issue, because we had it was the same players, looking at like Matty Lees, Sirenen, Sione Matautia, Knowles, under Christian Wolf as well, who are doing the same things. So players need to take responsibility. When it's the same players all the time, then I think what a lot of supporters are maybe thinking about, as regards Paul Wellens, is sitting him down and saying, look, you're costing us points in games. You're costing us to lose matches, and then you're weakening us as a squad by getting suspensions more than you probably should. And the argument there is as well, what value do you have to the squad if you're continually doing that? You're in a 2-year contract and you maybe spend about a third of those games on the sideline suspended, for example, and you think you're not getting value. That's obviously an extreme example. But when it comes to contract negotiations, that's something that will come up. I think, you had X amount of bans, X amount of yellow cards, red cards. That's not great. It's the same as if you have bad performances, and you end up getting dropped from the squad for poor performances, and then you don't get a contract renewal. That has to come into play as well, I think, in terms of the discipline, because as well as people having a go at Will Hopoate for being injured most of last season, for example, and saying, "Oh, get rid, he's not playing." Suspensions for late hits or the same offences keeping happening affects the squad, and has a negative effect on results and the overall progress of the team. So it's certainly worth considering to an extent on that, and when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, away from the players who are missing, the players who are in the 21-man squad. Sorry, it's a strong squad. There's not too many names that you would expect kind of rested. Obviously, James Roby being the only one who's been rested from the 21. Do you expect any of the other big name players to be rested on Friday night, or do you think Paul Wellens will go full team?
I think he'll go very strong. I wouldn't be surprised, like, for example, if Iggy Pazzi passes all the necessary tests, the same as Wello mentioned with Sione Matautia. If Pazzi's fit, I wouldn't be averse to potentially Louis having the week off. He's played a lot. Yeah. He's 37. And you could say if Iggy's there, you can maybe have Dan Norman getting some minutes as well. He'll need minutes. I think he's had a game last weekend. I think I might be wrong with that, but I think he needs some minutes again in case we get injuries. We need guys like Dan Norman having some minutes under their belt so they're ready to come in case injuries hit. Obviously, we hope Sione can play as well, and he can replace Curtis. Knowles, absolutely, he's been out for 5 games. Get him some minutes this week ahead of the trip to Headingley next week. Perhaps maybe you could look at James Bell or young Delaney getting the week off because they've had a lot of minutes, particularly young Delaney's had a great run and he's played superbly well. But maybe take him out for a game, just for him, because you don't want to burn out some young guys playing him maybe too much. Again, it's for his development. Take him out, show, go through some video clips, show him he's done well, show him he needs to work on, and then bring him back in because he's done extremely well. And I think mostly stronger, but maybe 1 or 2 rested. If we can have Sione and Iggy available, if they're both available, then maybe leave a couple of guys out, like Louis, for example, just to give him a bit of a rest, and so he can get ripped into the Rhinos the following week.
Yeah, that's it. I've had a little write down of a team, which I actually included Wes Bruins in it. He's been in and about the 21-man squad. He almost made his debut a couple of weeks back against Warrington. And I've actually named a team here that has no Makinson, no Lomax, no Louis, and then I was struggling for the last one, but I'll go through my team for you. I put Will Hopoate at fullback,
okay.
T. Ritson, Ben Davis, Wes Bruins, John Bennison, Wellesby and Dodd, Walmsley, Lussick, Parsi, Bell, Batchelor, and Knowles. And then on my bench was Sione Matautia, Dan Norman, George Delaney, to give you 2 props, and Jake Wingfield, who will act as a prop as well. But I would imagine with no James Roby in that team, we're going to be looking at Joey Lussick to do as near to 80 minutes as possible, because I've gone on record before now. I love Jake Wingfield. I hope he signs a new deal with the club. I hope that he is with us for years to come and he keeps maintaining that promise and builds it into being a first-team player. But I don't think he's a number 9. And I don't think Morgan Knowles is a number 9. And I don't want to see him at 9 because I think you're wasting players.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you look at, understand maybe at 9 you want someone who's going to, pick the ball up and run. And if you've got a big unit like Jake Wingfield is running for dummy half, that's going to be very, very difficult to stop. But I think his best position is without doubt at loose forward. James Bell would be another option to spell Joey if it came to it. I think he's maybe got more of a better skill set to carry that out more seamlessly. But I think, I think the only thing they're trying to perhaps do with Wingfield, and I noticed, a couple of years back, Christian Wolf did it with Lewis Dodd, was to try him with play him in different positions to improve his skill set. They did it with Jack Wellsby before, playing him at centre, playing him at wing, playing him at loose forward. So it developed his skills, it toughened him up. The same with Lewis Dodd, playing him at 9. So he's used to getting late hits and a bit of physicality. So when he came into the team and played at 7, he wasn't phased by it and didn't not shy away from it, but be put off by getting some hits with some big lads. So if that's the plan, and they're looking at it that way, thinking just to improve his skill set and maybe needs maybe a bit of work, with passing the ball from hand, then that's maybe a good plan. But I think moving forward, I do agree with you. That's not his optimum position. He's a loose forward come prop for me, and I think that's where for years to come he'll serve us very well.
Yeah, that's it. I think he's almost in between sizes here. Do they want to bulk him up? Do they want to keep him mobile? And I just, obviously, you've got Taylor Pemberton, who may well be injured. He may just be out of favour. But you think that maybe this might have been a game to give him 10, 15 minutes off the bench. He can play 6, he can play 9, he can play 13. I've seen him in the reserves. He looks like he's a busy player. But listen, that's the 21 we've gone with. We'll move on to Halifax. The Halifax squad. Simon Griggs has made 2 changes, with Dan Fleming, who's cup-tied, and Will Mayer dropping out. And Kevin Leroy and Brandon Pickersgill have come into that squad. The first thing that I noticed, Peter, is there's quite a bit of experience in that squad.
Yeah, there is quite a few there. When I seen the team look up, you look at like Ryan Lannon. Certainly not a superstar name. Kevin Leroy as well, as you mentioned, solid Super League citizens. Kyle Wood as well, Adam Tangata. Now Brandon Moore, I'm sure he was a youngster at Saints. If it's the same guy I'm thinking about, a hooker, I think, unless I've lost my head. But then I recognise the name from playing from a couple of games. A few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, I think there's some solid, honest rugby league players there. I think. And that's not being patronising towards them. That's a compliment, it's because being a good, solid rugby league player, that's more than you or I have ever managed. Let's be honest. So these guys are very talented to be where they are. They're no mugs. You look at Big Alex, his namesake there, Lachlan. He scores a lot of tries. He scores a heck of a lot of tries at that level. So he's someone we'll certainly need to watch. And you remember the cup tie with obviously a number of different players from 4 years ago. Certainly in that first half, they caused us problems. Their defence was tremendous. Their kicking game was very, very good. And, their defensive line speed caused us problems and prevented 2 or 3 tries before Robes eventually got over, I think, 5 minutes before half-time to give us the lead. And I think that day, like I expect on Friday night, it will be perhaps the last half hour, 20 minutes, when we pull away and perhaps put a bit of gloss on the scoreline and end up with a comfortable win. But if we turn up with the attitude that the game's won before we start, then we could come unstuck. We've got to get the attitude right and give these guys every respect, because they will be going out to show as individuals what they can do. Let's be honest, but also as a team, think we want a big scalp here. We want to knock out the world champions, because that could make their season, and then get them through to the next round, and another big payday, another game in the telly, more money out of the club, keep some of these players and strengthen their squad to perhaps the year after it join Saints in Super League. A team who I see they share 150 years of history.
Yeah,
look at their hashtag there. So, they want to get back to Super League, and getting that through financing it through a big cup run to improve their squad. That's what they'll be thinking about.
Yeah, they're no mugs. That's it. They've got a 7 wins, 4 losses in the league so far. 4th in the table, level on points with Toulouse, who are in 3rd, and 2 points behind Sheffield, and then Featherstone are running away with it at the minute, undefeated. They're unbeaten in the last 4 as well. Just turned over Whitehaven 60 points to 0. So, as you say, this isn't necessarily a game that Saints, and I don't think they will take it lightly, but should take lightly. I think it's something that we need to take the lessons from the first half of last week and turn them into the second half performance, but do it for a more sustained period. Don't think you've got to score on every set. I keep saying it, and I'm like a broken record, but all we've got to do is be honest and earn our opportunities. And if we do that, as you say, hopefully fitness, and no offence to these lads, as you say, they are better rugby players than me or you ever have been, but skill levels will out in the end, and Saints will come away with the victory and be in the hat for the next round of the Cup.
Yeah, I mean that's all that matters at the end of the day. Whether we stick 40 on them and it's a walk in the park, or whether we win with a last-minute drop goal, hopefully not. But no one will remember that if we do go on to win the Challenge Cup. Yep. That's the top and bottom of it. Obviously, you want the performance and the result, and I think the way to go out it, as you said correctly, start on Friday like we started the second half last Saturday, build up the lead. Then you can perhaps, if Iggy's played a lot of the first half, Big Al, rest them the last half hour and give maybe, if Dan Norman's back, if you've got George Delaney perhaps as well, give them like next half hour, boys, just go and get stuck in. You could do that rather than having to bring the big boys back on because we're maybe like leading by 6 points getting into the last 20 minutes and you think, well, listen, this is a bit sticky here. Go out, start fast, as you say, build pressure, get field position, don't, try and vary the kick on the last. Don't try and score off every set if they don't need to. Don't give them easy field position by trying to worldy pass on the halfway line that's not on and turn it over. Build up a good lead, and then look to have a good lead built up before the last 20, and then see it out.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. That's fair enough. So, what's your prediction, Peter, for the game?
Well, I hinted earlier, roughly about if we have roughly the same kind of scores we did in the semi-final a few years ago, would be very content with that. So, I'm going to go with Saints by 24.
Yeah, that's, to be honest, around about the point that I was going to say as well. So I will. I'll say Saints by 22, and I'll just say a miss kick will see that down a little bit further.
Well, I'll let you have that one, and you could always do an Ivan Tori and stick a fiver on it and see how you get on.
Yeah, we'll not mention indiscretions with betting after supporting St Helens with what's happened in the past, eh? Yeah. Right, we'll end on a proper positive note. First of all, if you can't make it or you can't see the game on Friday, it's on Viaplay. So have a little look for that. I think you've got to subscribe to it, but still, it's on Viaplay on Friday. If you can't get to that, then there's 2 games at the Totally Wicked this week. You've got the Academy on Saturday, who kick off at 1. And you've got the women's team on Sunday, who kick off at 2. And I just want to have a little nod to seeing First of all, for the reserves, Matty Foster came back and played his first game after yet another knee injury. It's good to see Matty back on the pitch and getting some good minutes, and hopefully we'll see him in and around the 21-man squad soon. And secondly, after I think it was 708 days out, Faye Gaskin made a return for the women's team last week in the nines competition. I think she got a try as well over there. It's great to see them coming back, and it's great as a club that we look after players as we have done, and we continue to do that, and it just shows that the club is being run in the right way.
100%, and two players who thoroughly deserve a bit of luck on the injury front, deserve their comeback. It was great to see Matty Foster's name included. The first thought that came into my head when I seen that the team named for the reserves is, please Matty, just come through the 80 minutes. It doesn't matter how you play, just come through unscathed. The performance will come second. So I'm really, really rapt for the young guy, because a couple of years ago he showed some real promise, and he's been so unlucky. Even when he went out on loan to get some minutes, he got picked up a bad injury when he was actually showing up pretty well, and that was at Super League level. And obviously the Saints women have, they're coming on leaps and bounds. They're still a fantastic team. They've got lots of great players, and having Faye Gaskin back only adds to that in terms of looking at the Challenge Cup, looking at the Women's Super League. And that's going to give the squad a real boost for the campaign ahead. So great to see them both back, and here's to both of them getting an injury-free run for the rest of the year.
Perfect. And what a way to end. Peter, thanks very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
No problem. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And we will catch you after the Halifax game. See you later.